How's it going, man? I'm doing all right.
Yeah. Like I said, we. So for those people wondering, me and Britton do keep in somewhat regular contact all the time.
Yeah, I know.
Usually,
I'm sometimes worried that I'm like, oh boy, I hope I'm not overpouring this guy with my angst about the world. But in comics, I try to keep it lighthearted sometimes.
dude, you talk about Watchmen. There's nothing lighthearted about Watchmen.
I like picking your brain. How's that?
Yeah. Okay, we can go with that. We'll go with that. So, how's it been going?
I've been all right.
That's very abrupt.
I'm doing all right. I got some movies from Amazon today, so I'm doing pretty good.
Okay, so today you're okay.
Today I'm doing all right. Last couple of months I've started college again, so yeah, working for the newspaper over there.
How's that going for you?
It's going well. I just did a story about horror comics to read, so I picked some horror comics I've enjoyed and just like, here, go read them. Comic books aren't just superheroes, ladies and gentlemen.
No, they aren't. I think people know that today. Like, it's one of those things. Like, what now? I'm trying to get, like, with the industry being where it is now. I'm just trying to find the best stories I possibly can. So, what'd you recommend?
I recommended Alan Moore's Swamp Thing because why not? One of my favorite DC things he did. Witches from Scott Snyder, which is actually my favorite work from him. I like his Batman work, but I think Witches is his best one, if you ask me. Might be a bit spicy.
I always been partial to his American Vampire.
That is a fun one. I do enjoy American Vampire. Actually got into that because of Stephen King, out of all people.
So. Well, no, that was the whole hook of it, right?
Thanks, Uncle Steve.
King, yeah. Stephen King wrote the first. For most people that don't know, Stephen King actually wrote the pieces of the first 5 issues of the comic, mostly the American Vampire's origin.
Oh yeah, I'm not even really that into vampires all that much. It might have been because I grew up in the Twilight era or something. More of a werewolf guy.
It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's some good werewolf stuff out there. I enjoy Rob Terry's Nightwolf series. That's a fun one. So I mean, so what else? So you picked Switches. You picked. Sorry, what was the first one again? Swamp Thing.
Oh, Swamp Thing. Yeah.
So what else?
Blue and Green, which is a newer comic from Ram V, which I really enjoy. It was one of those I just kind of picked. I'm like, this is one. Maybe it's not for everybody, but it's one that I personally really enjoyed. I love jazz music, and it's kind of like horror whiplash in some ways.
Horror whiplash. Okay, that's that. Ew. No, Whiplash is an interesting movie. It's a very.
I love Whiplash. Movie. I love Whiplash. It's a great movie.
I'm not entirely surprised. So yeah, that pursuit of perfection, because you're just enough of a perfectionist that you get the bad guy, just a bit.
Uncomfortably so, yes. Though I probably wouldn't take it that far.
I don't think you would, right? But again, for a guy like that, it's a weird thing, right? Because when you look at a creative industry, to get really good work, you have to put yourself in sometimes some really uncomfortable positions. Because the more uncomfortable you are, the more you have to grow. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that when you look at it from that perspective, you understand Fletcher quite a bit. That's what he's doing. He's trying to make people find that whatever it is, that genius on the inside. And I knew someone that was, she's one of the best writers I've ever seen. She had one of the most brutal teachers, not because he was a narcissistic asshole, but he's like, you can keep doing better. He pushed her to be better. And that push is a good thing.
I think there's being a hard ass, and then there's being what Fletcher's doing, which is just I just kind of write him off. He's a delusional sadist with delusions of greatness.
He's a bully.
Yes,
he's a bully. That's what he is. Like, he's a bully. sometimes like there is such a thing as a bully for the right reasons sometimes.
I don't think
but
so.
You don't think so? Brad Meltzer was on a show in another country, and him and the host had a good back and forth exchange. And they had a little bet. They had a little bet between them who could read the other guy the best, and the person that actually read the other guy the best, Brad would have had to do something. I think he would have had to come back or something. It was an interesting bet they had. Brad won, and the one reason Brad won is like you're a bully, but you're a bully for the right reasons. There are right, and there are pushing people. Again, it's that it's a really delicate thing because sometimes people know what the right thing is, but you have to kick them a little bit to get like you have to kick them in the ass to put them forward. It's like I don't want it. Wham. Okay, I guess I'm here. I got to do it. Right.
Yeah, it's kind of a gray. It's kind of a gray area. That's why I like Whiplash. It goes into those gray areas.
I don't know. Well, the thing is, I agree with you. He went too far.
I'm more of the opinion he's just a delusional sadist who thinks he's doing it for right reasons, even though it's clear he's not. It's just for his own ego, in my opinion.
Somewhat. It actually took me back. Like in the 4th grade, it was the first time I was ever cut from a choir. My teacher wanted to win, and I was like a half note off every time. I just didn't get the song. But I'm also just in the 4th grade, so the teacher sat me down, right? And I remember that actually. It was brutal, right? He wanted the best chance to win. Right. And that was it. Right. So on one hand, it was a great life lesson. It was a very great life lesson for me. On the other hand, look back, I was in the 4th grade. So it was just like, do you really have to cut me? Would it have made that much of a difference? Probably not.
People are strange, I've learned.
That you were never cut from something like that?
Have I been cut? I got ousted from the National Honor Society, but that was because I was like, "Fuck this! I don't want to do anything with it." Plus, I've never really liked being a part of those types of organizations, anyway.
Okay, so you've never been cut from a team or anything like that, and have you ever competed for anything?
Well, yes, I have gotten cut. I got cut from the speech and debate team. I don't even remember why now. It was just, I guess I just wasn't that good. I mean, I like discussing with people, but like doing a formal debate, I just couldn't get into it. My teacher was just like, "It's fine, don't come along."
It's all good, man. I mean, just speech and debate. Now, like, never tried for a sports team or anything like that.
I was in choir. I was in choir for a few years, which I loved and hated. Because I loved it because I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the experience of going to like concerts and singing. I hated it because I really didn't love doing all of the competitions and stuff. And also, you will meet some of the most unpleasant people in choir.
You will. Oh, that's
and I just don't have a lot of. I just don't have a lot of I don't have a lot of patience for. What's the word? Assholes? Yeah. All right. I'll go with that. Prima donnas?
You need that a little bit when you perform. You need that a little bit. Like, you gotta have a bit of an ego when you're up there, or else you won't get up there. You won't have that ability to come alive. There's a line, but I think you need it to some degree.
I guess so, but it's a weird thing. Choir. It's just like it's fun. Never a dull day in choir, but also you will just meet some of the most unpleasant individuals. maybe that's also why I like Whiplash. It is very relatable in that sense, where maybe not as extreme as in Fletcher, where almost Fletcher's like the devil. He makes everyone worse around him. But I have known people like that who are very cutthroat and very, egocentric in that way.
Okay. And you experience that yourself, so you kind of have a bit of that, like you understand a little bit what's going on there.
A little bit. Again, not as extreme, but a little bit.
Yeah. It's a strangely competitive world. It's weird because art doesn't, by its very nature, isn't typically competitive, because there's a lot of interpretation. There's a lot of what is good, right? Which I think I think that's a big difference between us and a sport. Like if you look at sports and art, they're similar in almost every way, right? There's discipline. You have to show up. You have to train. You have to practice. You have to work on your craft.
Funny, I did play sports, and like everyone else, I was the one who took it the most seriously when I played sports, because I have a really big competitive streak. In the right context, I should say. Like I can get really competitive.
So what's the right context and what's the wrong context?
Because
you
if it's something, maybe I'll rephrase it this way. It's something I really care about.
Well, yeah, I think that's everybody though. Like I think to some degree, right?
Like choir, I just kind of shake my head at all the egocentricism. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I don't care enough or something like that. I don't know. But something like I used to play baseball, and I just got really into that. I wanted to do well. I'll put it that way.
There's nothing wrong with that. Whereas me, when I play baseball, like I legitimately suck at baseball, like epically bad. I don't care though. I just like, okay, I'll go up, I'll swing, whatever. Right? I'll swing at the worst pitches. I'll barely hit the ball. I don't run very fast for an athlete, so it's just like I am terrible at baseball. But at the same time, right? I also never really cared. Like I never liked it, but I could see the appeal for people who play it. There is a lot of different skills, a lot of different things. Although I really hated playing outfield. I really hated playing like in one of those positions where you're just waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, I know. I would always stand out there and wait for the ball. And
yeah,
I'm more of a football guy.
So I'm actually kind of like, that's the thing. It's like I'm actually like, figured you'd tried out for football.
Actually, no, I didn't. I probably should have at some point. I had friends who did, but I never did. I probably should have though, because I don't know. I like football quite a bit.
Oh yes, I know. I've seen you whine about how bad Oklahoma sucks this year.
We've been struggling. I'll put it that way.
Dude, my grandmother's 86 and she can score on you guys. I mean, that's just the way it is. Like,
I don't think we're not looking ideal this year. I don't know. I'm hoping we make the comeback.
Even if
we're in a new system.
That's apparent. That is definitely apparent when you watch.
Yeah,
like I said, but by the time your season's done, I'll be able to score on you still. But I mean, my grandmother won't be able to. I will be able to. That's not a compliment. That's not a compliment, though. It's an improvement, but it's not really. Yes.
Another comic I recommended, Outcast from Robert Kirkman, which I think is
it's okay.
Underrated, I think. Love the art.
The art's really good. The art's really, really good. I think originally that was him and no, that was not him and McFarlane. Him and McFarlane did another book. But no, Outcast was a neat concept. It was a really neat concept.
It's weird because I generally don't like things to do with demons. Because I was raised a Christian, and being a good little Christian boy, when you're a naive kid, you get a lot of weird ideas about they're like, oh, demons, and it scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, and it still does in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare. I mean, eventually, like the whole idea of first something influencing you from the outside, and then eventually you not being able to tell where he ends and you begin.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was letting my cat out.
yeah,
But yeah, it's always just that's one of my issues with Christianity. I mean, I'm usually pretty chill with Christians, and I mean, I have a lot of fond memories from my time as a Christian. But they often use fear, and I think you have a more compelling case from like because Jesus teaches about joy and compassion and love for other people. Not that he didn't do his brimstone hellfire stuff from time to time.
he
But,
really didn't. Like, I mean,
well,
he
not.
really.
I think he was, but like I said, he was more focused on compassion. I'm like, I wish more churches would just focus on that. But
It depends on this where you're at. Some do. Some legitimately do. It depends on a lot of factors there. I mean, the thing about Christianity too is, like, I still have a Christian background, but I'd be like more of a non-denominational kind of thing, right? I don't have to fit any particular thing. There's Pentecostal, there's Lutheran, there's Catholic, there's all these different ideas of what Christianity can be. So
I always think it's funny the just kind of I wouldn't say antagonism, but kind of the rivalry, I guess, because my parents are like, oh, the Catholics, they're not the right or whatever. I'm like, it's the same fucking thing. Well, I mean, there's differences, but they believe the same thing.
kind of.
Ugh.
No.
I get
It's details. It's like anything. It's like as they say, an old quote: "The devil's in the details." From the surface, they look like all of them look similar. Some are more similar than others. Some are definitely more similar than others. But like the fact of the matter is, I mean, Catholicism is. Don't get me wrong; they do believe in Jesus. If you want to say that that's what they have in common, sure. But I mean, they have a lot of other things in the faith that are very. The Catholic Church is what's adopted most of the things we look at, like Christian, like other pagan things in there. That's a very Catholic thing. If you look at what the Bible says and how the Catholics follow it, it's not. They don't match up. They just really don't. I'm not saying any church is perfect, but it's not even close.
I mean, I mean, I'm more of like a hey, Jesus was pretty cool. If I saw Jesus today, I'd probably shake his hand. But
Well, no. I think most people would. Like, Jesus was the original hippie.
yeah,
Like, seriously.
yeah,
He was.
He was.
Yeah, he was the original guy that talked against the establishment. He was the original guy. He broke the Bible down basically into 3 verses. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Believe in God, honor thy neighbor, love thy brother. If you actually look at the Bible from cover to cover, that's it. It's that simple, right? If you break it all down. And he was the one that did that. He did that like when they were asking him about the 10 Commandments way back in the New Testament. They asked him about the 10 Commandments. He broke it down to 3. If you look at it from that perspective, like that's the core of Christianity right there. Just believe in God, honor thy neighbor, love thy brother. I struggle with number 3, but that's okay, right? But we all have those. But like I said, if you look at it, but again, that's one interpretation. There's so many of them, and it's not just true like with us. I mean, if you look at other religions in the world, like Hindus, like the absolute worst. There's so many gods for so many things. It's like who do you pray to? Sometimes is what the Hindus will tell you.
I'm also intrigued by Buddhism too.
Buddhism, Mr. Spock's religion. You like Mr. Spock?
Oh yes.
That's
I mean, the original Star Trek's pretty goofy. I know I'm probably gonna get like crucified by Trekkies, but I'm actually sure other Trekkies would acknowledge that the original show is very goofy and over the top at times. We all remember
it was for its time.
We all remember Shatner fighting against the lizard man, that big lizard man. I love it.
Yeah. But it's like it was science fiction in the 60s, man. Right? Like it was
well,
the
I
trailblazer.
know. I'm not trying to like diss on it. Like oh, this is so stupid. And I'm like, no, I get I get it was older. It was of a different time.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I'm sorry, you were gonna say.
No, go for it. Keep going.
Then again, we did get 2001: A Space Odyssey in the '60s, and that looked fucking amazing. Still holds up beautifully today. But that's apples and oranges. I get it. TV's cheaper than movies.
Well, it's time and care too, right? It's when you have an episodic TV, you kind of figure out your formula and you go. I mean, the original Star Trek was a love letter to pulp. So Star Wars, actually. They're
I was about to say, I know Star Wars is. Oh yeah,
so Star Trek. So Star Trek, like the original Star Trek series.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike all the other Star Treks, it had a different set. Like, I mean, not the Enterprise itself, but every world they went to, everything they did was different. It was a homage to some of the older science fiction stories out there. Like they did it's almost like a classic retelling of them in some ways, or at least a homage to them. They just did like Star Wars was a very particular group of stuff, but every episode of Star Trek tried to do something a little different. That's why it's of all the Star Treks, it's actually the most unique in terms of settings all the time.
One of my favorite episodes is I forget exactly what it's called, but Spock goes to this like planet world. It's kind of like from the Time Machine. The what are those? The not the Molochs, but the other people, the Eloi, I think they're called.
Okay.
Kind of like that. Well, there's this plant that like sprays pheromones on you and makes you happier and makes you bliss, but it also kind of brainwashes you. And I really enjoyed that episode because we get to see like a new dimension of Spock. We see the more human side of Spock in that episode, I think. And it also has one of my favorite lines, ending lines. He was Kirk is asking him about his experiences. He just says, "Well, I was happy." I'm just like, it's kind of beautiful. I thought it was anyway.
Yeah, it's simple. It's simple, right? My favorites from there are still City on the Edge Forever, Trouble with Tribbles, Doomsday Machine. There's some fun, but they're all it's all classic pulp, right? Star Trek didn't become the better versions of it until the Next Generation showed up 20 years later. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, Deep Space Nine is the one I have most fondness for, even though I can't stand the Ferengi. They're annoying.
They're like one of the best.
They're basically like the worst aspect. It's almost like a parody of like greed at some points.
That was the original intent. It didn't become a parody till later, but if you watch the early episodes of Star Trek Next Generation, they originally had the Ferengi as bad guys, like pitted as like they were considered a serious threat. Well, as Next Generation went on, it became more of a joke, right? A little bit more of a joke. But if you watch the first episode when the Ferengi show up, they're treated like big bad guys.
Oh shit! It's the Ferengi,
Oh no! Just if you watch this from season 1, it's like season 1 of Next Generation isn't very good by and large, but the Ferengi first show up there. How you see them there and what they become are completely different.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I have a bad habit of doing that. I had you on my podcast and I was doing it, so I apologize. Really.
Okay. So what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I don't know. Maybe it's because their Ferengi is just so alien to what I think of as good. Is why I don't like them, because they're just like a lot of them are just greedy assholes, and they think being greedy is good. And I'm like, well, there's so much other beautiful things out there than being rich. I'm guessing was the point, but I could be wrong.
I came to, and this is a credit to Armin Shimmerman who played Quark. It's a credit to Max Gronchik who played Rom. I respected the added dimensions to the characters as time went on. Also, I kind of respected. my favorite like little thing about them, and I kind of respect that. We're talking about God earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So the Ferengis has to go bribe their God, like when they go to pray. And I actually, there was a little part of me that went, you know what? At least that's honest.
That's
the-
what's humorous about. Oh, sorry.
It's not really. I didn't laugh. I just kind of like they bring out like the one thing about them. The cool thing what happened over a period of time was they're a reflection of some of our baser nature, and that's a little ugly in some ways. But it's also not like, and the thing I got out of it is they're not all bad. It's just there's a certain how do I put this? I respect characters who are honest with who they are, and there's a certain and there's just a certain, to some degree, uncomplication to it. You know what they want every single time, and that does make things clearer, right? Where someone that has, I don't value wealth or any of those things. I mean, what do you want then? Like, what do you want, right? So,
it's funny. He's played by Armin Shimmerman, who also played Andrew Ryan, who was another corrupt capitalist from BioShock, which is a great game.
yeah, BioShock came after, and they got him because of his role as Quark.
Awesome. That's awesome.
But again, if you look at DS9's Quark's arc, he isn't just about the money either.
He's a dick, though.
He can be. Sometimes he's not, though. He's cruel.
No, he's a good character. He can be a bit of an insufferable prick at times.
Sometimes, but he had to be. I mean, considering the circumstances sometimes he was dealt with, he did really damn well for himself. Mm-hmm. Right? So, he could be the villain sometimes. I mean, my favorite DS9 episodes are when Rom formed the Union, the Ferengi ones. Rom formed the Union. That was because it made Rom a much more interesting character after that. He wasn't just a mad genius that will never go nowhere. No, he actually, they gave him the ability to grow as a character, and also showed a really subtle story about what happens when you have a Ferengi that doesn't care about profit, and what do they look like. And that's why I loved him and Nog in particular, because those things are like Nog's speech about why he wanted to join Starfleet is one of the strongest scenes in the entire series.
I agree. Though I do find it funny when you say they're honest, but that also makes them predictable. That's the reason they end up imploding is because greed.
But that's part of the fun. That can be part of the fun. Okay, so the other episode I really love was their version of the Magnificent Seven, when they actually had to go rescue Quark's mom from the Dominion. That episode's awesome.
I love the Dominion storyline. That's a great one.
Oh yeah, but do you remember that one where they accidentally killed their hostage?
Oh, I don't actually remember that. I just remember I remember the Dominion, and I remember just how big of a threat they were.
They were. The Ferengi episode was great. They actually did the episode's called the Magnificent Ferengi. So it's a squad of seven. It's seven samurai kind of but done by the Ferengi. It's a great episode. Quark, Rom, and Nog, plus four other, like, they assemble a group of Ferengi to go rescue, Moogie from the Dominion. And it's hilarious because they first try the old combat thing, and that fails absolutely miserably. Right?
Oh, yeah. They're not warriors, which I think is funny.
Well, yeah. Again, when you watch the first Next Generation episode and you see what they start as, you're gonna be like, wait, what? Like that is such a. They try to make them serious. They made them they made them negotiators. And that's the thing. They negotiated their way with Dominion. And it's hilarious because in the process, they actually kill their hostage, which I think is funny as hell.
Well, yeah, that's what I like. But that's what's interesting about the Ferengi is that they're not warriors. They're negotiators. They're business people.
Yeah.
But, I love how their religion is basically the invisible hand of capitalism.
Well, again, he bribes his god. he bribes his guy. I mean, there's a little scene where he actually bribes his guy. It's funny, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, but it's also like, again, there's an honesty to them, and they became a much more interesting. You don't love them, but I thought, like I said, I love DS9. I love that they made all the different people there so three-dimensional.
Oh, they're fun. Yeah, they're fun. I'm not going to deny that, but
so
it's kind of like Bioshock. Wait, what?
What's your favorite DS9 episode?
My favorite DS9 episode. I love when the kid loses his dad's baseball cards. That's a fun one.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
And I enjoyed the one when Quark's just being an annoying asshole, and he just goes, and the guy's just like, "Could you shut the fuck up, please?" And he's all like, and then he brings up just all the shit that humanity's been through, like the Holocaust and purges, and he talks about how better the Ferengi are. Like, I like that moment in the show.
Which one is that? Like, that's not really the story, dude. That's just a commentary. Which episode is that? What was
I'll have to
going
check
on?
again. It's been a long, like, I haven't watched Star Trek a lot since early high school, middle school. Same thing with like Doctor Who. I haven't watched it in a long time, so my memory is a little hazy.
Like, he said that to Cisco in a few spots, but I mean, he talked about it with Cisco at one point, but there are at least a couple points, but it's not what I think you might be thinking of is like their 100th episode. It might have been that one. I don't know, but but like I said, there's some good ones. My favorite episode of that series is when I have two. When Cisco and Garrett get the Romulans into the war. That is one of the darkest episodes I've ever seen in Star Trek ever. And the other one the other one I really enjoy is there's a time travel moment where there's this colony of the descendants of their descendants, and Kira's about going to die from this, right? But they couldn't let people go. They were going to go sacrifice themselves to save this colony that may never have existed. And Odo, of all people, stops it. It's a really interesting episode. So it's my favorite one.
Oh yes, Emissary is what it's called when he says that.
The very first episode of the series.
Yeah, I enjoy those. It's a great starting point of the series. I also like how Quark goes through the arc of being like annoying Ferengi asshole to a better person over the series.
Oh, he's a much more three-dimensional character as time goes on. Did you ever see the one where he became the head of the Klingon household?
Yeah, a long time ago. It's been a while though.
That one's good too. That one's really, really good. Like I said, he can be the villain sometimes, but he was at his best. Like, he's a bartender. I mean, he does occasionally some illegal stuff. I know lots of people, lots of small businessmen today that do it for similar reasons, not necessarily agree, but to survive. So it's just like, okay.
But yeah, one of the things I like about Deep Space Nine is that it expands the world of Star Trek and makes it more like a kind of like what the Clone Wars did for Star Wars. It made the universe feel bigger. I really like that. I like when they do big stories like that very well, or when they do world building like that, and they don't make it super complicated, like some other things I could mention. Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings? Well, Lord of the Rings, but yeah, remember, Lord of the Rings also came
Rings of Power.
I haven't seen Rings of Power, and I don't think I'm going to.
It's I saw the first 2 episodes. I couldn't get into it.
Lord of the Rings isn't for everybody. Like, honestly.
Oh, I enjoyed Lord of the Rings.
You enjoyed Lord of the Rings, but I thought you said needlessly complicated world building.
Well, yes, because in the original books, he does spend a lot of time. Because on the one hand, it's very impressive. On the other hand, he doesn't always. How do you put it? He doesn't always put the Doesn't always get to the point.
Yeah, he doesn't get to the point. It's not always about the. You gotta remember something, right? When he wrote those, that was first. That was the first fantasy series. Like everybody, like that. It was definitely first. I mean, there's other fantasy stories, but that was the first series like that at all. So
Okay.
I mean, yeah, it was first series. So I mean, he was kind of like he was the first one, and then and then he got copied forever. Terry Brooks came after Terry Brooks, David Eddings, and then Robert Jordan came along, which took that to in some ways an umpteenth level, about as far as you can go with that concept. Brandon Sanderson's kind of continuing that route right now, right? But fantasy has gotten a lot better at today compared to then. Is you can have the world building in it, but it's also about the story in front of you. And they do a better job, and they do a better job of that. But I mean, I'm not really crazy. I like The Hobbit of all of Tolkien's books. That's my favorite one.
I do enjoy The Hobbit as well.
Yeah,
it's more simple, I think.
Yeah, no, it's a straightforward story. That's why it's good. That's why I like it.
Lord of the Rings is too.
Kind of.
I'll give it credit for that. Get the ring of Mordor.
That's the plot's basic. I don't know. The Tom Bombadil stuff is not exactly a straightforward. It's not a straightforward journey to the end, right?
That's true. I'll give you that.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Like it was first, right? So that's why the world building was the way it was. I mean, he's also a show off. Like languages today, even today, do not match what Tolkien came up with then. Basically invented a language in his fantasy series.
He's a brilliant man. I'm not going to distinguish. I'm not Michael Moorcock, who just takes pot shots at him any chance he gets.
Well, they were rivals. I mean, I can't really blame Moorcock for that. I mean,
I like Moorcock. I think Elric's a lot of fun. For instance,
I'm partial to Hawkmoon.
I haven't read Hawkmoon.
Hawkmoon's fun. Probably the thing about Elric is the Elric goes on and on. I love the initial Elric stuff, but there's a lot of Elric stuff out there now. Hawkmoon's kind of like this little like self-contained 3-story arc thing. It's just fun. It's bombastic as heck. I mean, the jewel in the skull, where the main character actually has a jewel in the skull. If he doesn't obey, he dies. How he gets out of that to the Mad Gods element. Got like the evilest of evil empires. It's fun. It's as pulpy as you can get, and I enjoy that. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Moorcock's good. I like one of his quotes where he says, "I like to think of myself as a bad writer with big ideas, but I guess I'll take that over being a big writer with bad ideas."
Yeah, but I mean, he's good.
I think he's better than that, but he's not bad. He's good, I think.
Yeah, no, he's very good, very talented guy too.
I don't know. It just kind of rubs me wrong when he just kind of. Not that I don't have like a special attachment to Tolkien or anything, but it's just kind of like, yeah, come on, like you already did epic poo. You don't need to take pot shots every chance you get.
Some people don't let go, right? So we all have those things. It's hard to walk away from. And like I said, Moorcock knew Tolkien in a way we don't. Like they were still alive together when they were both writing stuff. So
yeah, though epic poo is really interesting. Is the essay he did about why he doesn't care for Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
Now I don't think all of it is right, but I can see where he's coming from with it.
It's a retelling ultimately. Lord of the Rings is a retelling of the Percival story ultimately, but chosen one goes to save the world. Usually it does stuff involving family, and that's a lot of fantasy actually.
There was another one of his books I read, but I thought it was a little too meta for my taste. Also gave me some unpleasant mental images that I don't want to remember.
Are we talking Moorcock or Tolkien here?
I'm talking Moorcock.
Okay. Which one?
Oh God, I can't remember what it's called now. I'll have to look it up. But I read it a few years ago. Like, oh, Michael Moorcock, this should be a lot of fun. And I was like, kind of dull, and Tim just kind of it's like it's him as actor, but he's like going into this like it's kind of like Narnia, but it's not because Moorcock doesn't like Narnia either.
I have no idea what you're talking about, man, because there's no context for me to work with here.
Hold on, I'll find it. You just calm yourself.
I'm calm. I'm very calm. It's just like
See.
it's
The
like
Whispering Swarm is what it's called.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I never read that one, so
I didn't care for it, so you're not missing anything.
okay, fair enough. No, for fantasy today, I am enjoying Alana Andrews. I can't believe I'm saying that, but it's true. I really like Alana Andrews does with the Kate Daniels stuff. Sanderson's really good. I enjoy Fonda Lee. I think she does some really neat stuff in the fantasy field. Christopher Russell's stuff is fun, right?
Didn't you have him on?
Yeah,
I think I saw that episode.
yeah. Like I mean, that's the thing. Like Epic Fantasy's now finding its home in the indie publishing field. So I mean, it's because there's a demand for that kind of story. Like there's always like there are nostalgia freaks like me that wants that kind of thing. Hey, I want that super evil that needs the chosen one with this all powerful weapon of awesome to take this guy down. I like that story.
Yeah, that's fine. We all have stuff that we like, and
Yeah.
I like that type of story when it's done well, like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter.
Mhm.
I have some opinions on Harry Potter, but
Well, that's what you're here for, man. So what's your opinion on Harry
love
Potter?
him, man. I enjoy Harry Potter. I got to him a little late. I didn't get into him until middle school, but I think they're some of the best young adult fantasy I've read in a long time.
Yes.
I love the setting of Hogwarts. I love the characters. I have very conflicting ones on Snape, as everyone does. But I tend to be less. I'm less sympathetic to Snape than some people.
I enjoy him.
Compelling character, but
I do have some sympathy for him. I understand his. I think he's the most human. In some ways, he's the most human of all the characters. The child of the woman he loves needs help, but it's also the son of a man he absolutely hates, and was justified at least a little bit in how he felt there. That's an interesting struggle.
Yeah. I don't know if that justifies him being petty or I kind of goes down to what I think is his core flaw. He couldn't let go. He could not let go. He couldn't let go of his anger over what happened to Lily. He couldn't let go of what happened with him and James. Now I get it. Now, as someone who did get bullied, I understand that pain. But what he did with it, I do think my sympathy dries up once he's just a huge jackass to everybody. Just because you went through pain does not give you the excuse to be an asshole. That's how I view Snape.
Are you sure he didn't let go?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. So then
that's his core flaw in the. It's his core flaw in the series.
No,
that's why he died, dude.
Is it?
Yes.
Why did he die?
Well, you mean like just why he died in the book, or like you mean like in a deeper way?
Well, you say you couldn't let go. I have a counter argument. I have a counter argument for you. But since you say
he protected Harry because he couldn't let go, he couldn't. He bullied Harry because he couldn't let go. He went against Voldemort because he couldn't let go.
Are you sure? Let me throw a set. I'm going to give you this.
Well, he died. Well, I should say before I'll let you go, but before I He died because Voldemort thought he was the one who had the Elder Wand.
Yes.
And Snape thought he'd get it from him by killing him.
No.
But let me know your counter argument. I'd love to hear it.
Okay, as far as the wand goes, the plan there was Snape would kill not Voldemort, but Dumbledore. That was always the plan. Not the way it happened, but what happened there was Draco Malfoy of all people won the wand before that could be done. The idea was that between Dumbledore and Snape, they could nullify the effect of the wand forever. That was what they were going for. That didn't happen. So it wasn't that Snape couldn't. He was kind of caught between a rock and a hard place at that point, right? That just went to shit. And the guy that could clear my name's dead. Now what do I do? To the rest of it, and he's still, ironically enough, even in his escape, if you were actually reading his dialogue to Harry, he was actually giving Harry advice on what to do to deal with what was to come. He actually was helping Harry, even though he came off like a prick.
It's kind of his MO.
Well, but it says something. But again, this is the let go argument. Now I'm throwing this against you. He couldn't let go of all his feelings with James, but I don't know if I would describe his feelings for Lily and his inability. He always loved her. There was that was a genuine thing, and he blamed himself for his part in getting her killed.
Oh yeah,
right. So he accepted her. So he completely let go of who he was to become someone better. He's easily the bravest character of all of them.
Almost definitely.
Right. He's easily. It's not even a contest. Right. So he was willing to let everybody else judge him however they were going to judge him. He was concerned, actually, of all the characters. He was concerned the most with the right thing. No. He went back to the Death Eaters because he was the logical choice to spy on them. Because he had the skills to hide his thoughts, but he also was believable enough as who he was that he could fit into that perfectly. And he did it because it was the right thing to do. My favorite scene with him was when the Mark came back and he showed Dumbledore, and he's like, "You're not worried?" It's like, "No, why would I be?" Like, he was mocking everybody, the other guys who were afraid. It's like, what a bunch of cowards. And I think my favorite thing about Dumbledore is like, sometimes I think we sort these hats too soon. Right? That little line, because for a guy that was initially a coward, a sniveling coward who was hated and was jealous of James because James had something he wanted.
Was he a coward though?
Yeah. He couldn't stand up to James. He could in the beginning. When he changed. He certainly wasn't a coward at the end of the series, but at the start he was. And I say it like that.
I think he was insecure.
Oh no, he was scared. You don't join the evil dark force of the universe because you're a strong person. You do it because you're afraid and you're looking for something that seems stronger than everything else. That's what it was. When it was over and he realized the part he played in Lily's death, right? He was like, he was devastated. But he also was like, he watched out over Harry. Again, there's that conflict of, this is the son of my worst enemy, but also the son of the person I love. And sometimes, if you're saying he couldn't let go of his past feelings for James, couldn't forgive James, you're correct. That's what you're saying. I'll give you that. But I would argue that the rest of it wasn't about an inability to let him go. It's just that love can change a person. I mean, I think Snape's living proof of that. Love can change you. It doesn't change you from being it doesn't change you from being who you. It doesn't change who you are in the sense like he was always going to be that little bit of that prick. But I don't think the Snape that started like that from the past would have done anything for Harry. I don't think the Snape in the past would have stood in for Quirrell. I don't think the Snape from the past would have spied on the Dementors. Right?
Well, I think his anger overtook his fear.
No,
Yes,
no. I don't think he was angry. But again, he never could forgive James. But he even
I meant his anger at Voldemort, but I did.
Voldemort. I don't know if he was ever actually angry at Voldemort. He just thought he just saw at the end of that Voldemort was wrong. Like there was like he didn't have the same malice. He didn't have the same malice a lot of the other Death Eaters had. He didn't have the same because again he it's what he's been through, right? It's what he's been through, what he's done. He did terrible things as a Death Eater. The first time. The second time he was a Death Eater, he was a spy. He was a spy for the quote unquote the good guys. So I'm sure he had to do some terrible things, but the truth of the matter is, he went out of his way. He went out of his way in some, even when he was a quote unquote fighting the kids. He wasn't trying to injure or kill. Like this is not a man doing this out of anger. This was a man that did it out of of all the characters. He did it because he loved somebody enough that he was willing to change for them, even though that person was long gone. That's what.
I think that's part of it, but I see where you're coming from.
Yeah,
I'm not willing to throw him the bone.
I noticed that.
But I do agree that I think his story is also a very powerful exploration of what Rowling was going for. Love conquers fear, which I think is probably the best way you can describe Harry Potter, what it's trying to say.
Oh, it can overcome the darkest of things, and it can make us our best versions of ourselves. And that's Snape in a nutshell. It was again, is he a good guy? Not in the traditional sense, but he's not a bad guy. At the end, I mean,
I don't think he's a bad guy. I just think he was.
But you have no sympathy to, but you have no sympathy toward him either. And I think he's got a lot to be sympathetic about.
I mean, I think there's the beauty of the fact that he, for one, I think Snape is a very insecure person. Didn't have a lot of self-worth. That's why I think he was so. I think that's why he was so loyal to Lily. Why he joined the Death Eaters. Why he went to Dumbledore, is because he wants validation as much as he.
No, he doesn't. No, he
does.
Didn't.
He does.
No.
Yes, he does.
No. That one.
What other reason could there have been?
Because he loved Lily and it was the right thing to do. That's it. That's all he cared. He didn't care how other people saw him, and you can see it in how. So then, why if he doesn't care about that, he's not seeking validation. There's no validation. That wasn't why he did that. He did it because validation requires that you show it to somebody. Like Lily's dead. There's not, so you can't. To her, no. So that was the only person he cared about, what they looked like. Even Potter at the very end, although he did show himself at the end to Potter, so that Potter could understand not even so much about him, so he understand what he had to do to deal with Voldemort, right? Because Voldemort, because of just that nature, that whole thing. But in that process, Harry understood him. He didn't care if anybody else did. Didn't care that Dumbledore did. He didn't care about any of that. He didn't do it for validation. He did it because it was the right thing to do. And that's all he cared about. It was the right thing to do by the woman he loved. That's it. And he struggled with that. You can make that argument sometimes. But validation? No, man. He didn't want validation. He did want to be defensive dark arts teacher. But I mean, that's like a personal, like you want to make him a little, but that made him human. He wanted validation of. But whether he did the right thing or not, didn't care what anybody else thought of him.
Well, that's the thing I also find interesting. He's a foil to Harry, because they both They understand each other, or
Yes.
at least I think Harry grew to understand Snape. But
Yeah, like
Snape, I think, has very limited empathy because he's been beaten down his whole life. So it kind of calloused him a little bit.
somewhat, but again, he wasn't doing it for validation. If you're gonna look at his motivations, he didn't care what. If he doesn't care what anybody thinks, it's not validation. If he doesn't, he understood. Again, he understood who he was, and he did what he thought, what he could to be the right thing. That was it. Like he is the closest thing to an altruist in that entire series. Because you can't say it's Dumbledore. You might be right. You can't say it's Dumbledore. You might be able to make a case for Hermione and
I was gonna say Harry
or Harry. You might be able to make a case for it, but even Harry had his moments, right? So I mean, Harry had a lot of different reasons. Like he had a personal reason to deal with Voldemort. Right? He had a personal stake in this. So,
but I find it interesting. It's Harry could let go. Snape couldn't.
sure.
Harry. The reason that they're different is that Harry can show compassion. That's, I think, is his biggest strength. Is his compassion for other people. I don't think Snape has that.
We'll disagree. I don't think Snape. I think the difference is he can show it. Snape can't. There's a difference. You like Snape. Look, I'm not saying that Snape's necessarily a better person. But if you're looking at,
no.
But if you're going to look at him but you got to be honest with what you're seeing here. This is a guy that didn't do it for validation. This is a guy that, I mean, he didn't. He had his own reasons for doing it. Right? He did it again. Mm-hmm. He did it for love, but not necessarily the love of anybody else around him. He didn't need that. So, but he tried. I mean, he tried. He tried to teach Harry how to block his, like, I can't remember what it's called, clemency or something like that. He tried. He did his best, right? Yeah. He did his best. Yeah, he couldn't do it, but he tried.
Yeah.
He tried to save Dumbledore after Dumbledore put on the ring, even though he knew he shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, I mean, there's compassion right there.
I think the occlumency is kind of a gray area, but yeah, with Snape with Dumbledore, yeah, I think him and Snape also understand each other because
Absolutely.
Dumbledore had a similar issue. He couldn't let go. He couldn't let go of the guilt he had over his sister, and Dumbledore sort of has that kind of "I got this" sort of mentality, is what I kind of gathered from reading about him. He's like, it'll be fine. Just trust me. And it's like, did he do some dubious things? Kinda, but good guy. Not denying it, but
was he?
Yes, I think he was at the end of the day.
For sure.
Why do you not think so?
I think the most interesting thing about the seventh book is it completely changed the perspective of who Albus Dumbledore was. I think it was. I mean, this was once upon a time as a young wizard, he was more like Voldemort than he is now.
Well, yeah, he did. Yeah, I think he.
Right.
That's why I think he understands Voldemort so well.
Oh, sure, that's part of it.
Is because he was there at one point. He had gone down that dark path. He did.
He's gone down a dark path. He walked away after he realized the harm he was causing. He's not Riddle, but he manipulated. He knew Quirrell was up to something. Could have done something sooner, didn't. He knew what was going on there. He knew what was going on with the Chamber of Secrets. He knew what was going on. he manipulated a lot of the events to go to a certain direction, right? Up until the very end. Even Harry. To some
But
degree,
continue what you were saying.
so now, again, did he have the right reasons? Perhaps. But it
He
doesn't
wanted to
change
stop. He wanted to stop Voldemort at all costs, and he did. He did.
Did he? It was Harry that did
Posthumously,
it.
yes, he
Ultimately.
did.
Yeah.
If
He
it weren't for
tried.
his machinations, I don't think it would have happened.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Who knows? But here's the thing. He pulled a lot of strings and he let a lot of people die.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't perfect, which I know that might be a cop out, but what are you gonna do?
Well, again, we're arguing characters about sympathy and stuff. I think the interesting thing was it made Dumbledore a more human character. At the end, he was a much more human person than he wasn't just the big
Wasn't
hero
Gandalf.
that saved the day. No, the thing is, he was Gandalf for a good chunk of the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly, he's not. He's just a dude trying to figure it out like the rest of us. I thought it was an interesting choice.
Well, yeah, I do too. It's one of the things that kind of bothers me. I know there's some fans who want to seem like Dumbledore was a bad guy secretly. I don't think so. I think he was a man who knew himself, I think. And
That he did. That'll get
and he knew what he was capable of. And he knew that he was destined for better things because he's clearly brilliant. He's clearly, he could have done anything he wanted, really. But he didn't because he did a lot of horrible things and he didn't want to ever do that again. And he realized he could really harm other people. But I think he was a good person at the end of the day. I think he had. Now, could he have done things differently? Yes, he could have. He could have stopped Riddle before he did all the things he did. He could have saved so many people from dying. But at the end of the day, if it weren't for him, Voldemort, he would have won. I really do think that.
No,
if it weren't for him and Harry, I think Voldemort would have won.
Well, it wasn't for Harry for sure. Voldemort would have won, right? But
yeah.
But I bring all this. I bring all this up like this because I want critical analysis of the story is important. Understanding what you're seeing and what is being presented. You don't have what you feel about a character is one thing. The question is why. Right? And to understand that, you got to understand what is being processed in front of you.
I don't know why I have such strong feelings about Snape. A lot of them negative. But it's just, I guess my process is just because you've gone through a lot of pain does not give you the excuse to be a gigantic asshole to people. It's kind of what I've thought about it over the years. And yeah, you did good things, but you also did horrible things.
He was human. I mean, it's interesting. Like after that,
he was Neville's greatest fear, dude.
But that's also somewhat to do with Neville himself. That was more to do with Neville than it was to do with Snape. Snape enjoyed it a lot, right? Especially early, but
he's an asshole.
A little bit. Well, hey, he's human. We all get a little rush when it comes to having a little power. Neville is one of my favorite evolutions as well.
Yeah, I love him.
Yeah, in the series, but I think the last book was a very bold. She made some bold choices in it, and one of them was she completely subverted your expectations of both Snape and Dumbledore, both. I did not expect that Dumbledore. Very much the seventh book is very much who is Albus Dumbledore, and why did he have to die?
Well, I think it kind of hero's journey thing. If you wanna go into that.
No, actually, that was the interesting thing. It wasn't really a hero's journey. It was, well, not in the traditional sense. Harry, again, that story was set. The idea, I think, the thing that's really interesting about like her choices, there is the ultimate message of that to me isn't that we all have to make our own way in the world, ultimately. And we can't do the things, understanding the things our parents did, or our teachers did, or our mentors do. Right? You have to realize that sometimes you have to make your own decisions, and they're not going to be your parents or your mentors or your teachers or any of those things. You got to do what's right for you. And that's why I love the King's Cross scene when they had right in Harry's head, where Harry and Dumbledore had their last official conversation. I dug that because it was apropos, because it was like, at this point, it's up to Harry. Whatever you do here is on you, buddy. Right? But I love that it was just human enough that once you see who Albus Dumbledore was in Harry's head, whether it was real or not, he forgave him. And Dumbledore there, I also acknowledge that I don't know if Harry was a more powerful wizard than Dumbledore, but Dumbledore goes, "You're a better man than me," and he acknowledged that you're better. So I thought that was a really cool message.
Yeah, because I mean, I think Harry's a good character because his compassion for other people.
Compassion, but I mean,
it's kind of like Batman. Why I find Batman so interesting. He's a character who was forged by darkness. I know you're smiling. This is probably an odd comparison, and take a shot every time I've mentioned Batman. But they know that pain of helplessness, of feeling alone, and they don't want anyone else to ever go through that.
Yeah,
and
although I don't think Harry will ever dress up like a bat and beat up.
Well, no, no, I don't think so. But I actually had a really interesting pitch for a Harry Potter like sequel that was not the play. That definitely didn't happen.
What would have been? What was the pitch?
I would have loved to see Muggle-born wizards create a sort of like separationist movement and take revenge on the Death Eaters, because one of the things that kind of bothers me, they got off way too easy. Malfoy's got off way too easy, and it's just my sense of justice, how the world works. I don't think that would just happen like that. I really don't. And, people like Umbridge threw people into the Azkaban. I think that could be really interesting. Like,
I think Umbridge got hers. I think.
Oh, Umbridge, yeah, most definitely,
yeah. Okay, so you fight a war. Okay, war's over. Do you hold a grudge forever?
No, probably not.
Okay, so I'm going to challenge your sense of justice a little bit here.
All right. All right.
So the war's over. So when you have that kind of civil war going on, right? You have that kind of civil war going on. A lot of people make mistakes. A lot of people make choices based out of fear. A lot of people make choices because they're monsters themselves. A lot of people make choices because they have no choice, really good choices in those situations. War's over. How do you tell which from which?
That would be an interesting, conundrum. I wouldn't say that the Like for the pitch, I think that was kind of what I was going for with the pitch. It's like, well, I can see where they're coming from, like, you know, because I like 3-dimensional kind of antagonists. Not that, I don't want to like diss on Voldemort. I think Voldemort's a great antagonist for what he is. But I just thought it'd be interesting because, you know, Muggles just get shat on throughout the Harry Potter series, and I thought, what if they decided to bite back? I can definitely see that happening. I think you could create. I think it could. I think it could create some interesting character stuff with the crew. I think it would.
I think what she did actually made, to me, in that situation. We're going to get into this because when we do have conversations, your sense of justice and sense of vengeance, we'll have a little chat about that before we wrap up. Because I think you get those two confused sometimes. I think because it's a war, and you've done all the fighting you want to do, and enough people have died. I mean, if you let it go forever, the pain never ends. Someone else is going to hurt somebody. Someone else is going to kill somebody. Someone else is going to. There has to be a point you walk away. And that was the end of the Harry Potter. When Dumbledore fell and Voldemort fell, the two quote unquote leaders of the sides were done. So there's no heads to fight anymore. You know, Voldemort lost. Voldemort lost.
Mm-hmm.
They all knew he lost. So people were free to live and be again. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I know this just from some of the things I know about World War II vets, right? Some of the things they saw, some of the things they did. I don't know if there's a single thing more punishing than what they actually already went through. Like, how do you punish that? Right? How do you do that? I don't have a good answer to that. I don't think anybody does. I mean, it sounds simple. You get, hey, I want my vengeance, and you might be able to tell a story about that, like a story somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, it's got to be like at the end of it, right? It's sooner or later it comes to this very simple point: hasn't enough people been hurt for this? And that's it, right? I mean, that's what it comes to. I don't think anybody on the Death Eaters at that point, now that their master is gone for good. I'm sure the Malfoys. I'm sure Lucius will be carving some kind of evil for the future somewhere over the rainbow. Then again, he might just get drunk because his boss lost now, and everybody knows what kind of shithead he is. Draco's.
Well, the thing is about the Malfoys, they learned from hard experience that. I think their problem was that they vastly underestimated what they were getting into with Voldemort.
Draco, yes. Lucius, no. Draco, you could make a case for that. I don't think Lucius you can. But
well, what do you think about Lucius then?
I think Lucius was a villain. I mean, he introduced the chamber. But you've kind of defanged him. Like, his master's dead, and to be perfectly blunt, he has no balls. So so he's a snake with some venom, and as long as you keep an eye on him, he's good. Can't really, again, you can't try people. You can't try, again, you have to try everybody based on whatever evidence and things they've done. Right? And if everybody's done terrible things, right, you either have two choices. You condemn everybody or you let everybody go. Right? Because really there's nothing to do. There's nothing to be done. We all fucked up. And everybody did. It got to that point, everybody screwed up. Right? Mm-hmm. So you probably let them go and you just keep an eye on them. That's all. Right?
Yeah.
That's just me. Draco's a more interesting character. He's much more interesting because of what he was pushed into, what he did, right? what he was pushed into, what he did. Is he the same guy that started that was he the same? Does he the same smug prick his dad was? I don't think so. Not after everything he went through, right?
No,
But
I think he was just an immature idiot.
Well, but I mean, it's hard when your peer pressure is when your dad's this douche, and you got this big evil overlord. If you don't do what he says, he'll probably kill you, right? So he's he's an interesting character post that, but how do I put this? But like I said, vengeance and revenge after everything you went through, man. I seriously, I just want to do a nap, and I want to get a pretty woman on my arm, and I want to get laid for a while, because if I was in a fight like that, it's just not worth it after a while. Like, just like, if you got to fight, you got to fight. But when it's over, I don't want to hang on to it anymore. Right?
Yeah. Still, I thought that'd be that could be an interesting idea.
Well, you want, but you got again. So let's talk. Your favorite characters are Batman, Rorschach.
Well, I do like Daredevil quite a bit too,
and Daredevil fits that mold as well.
I like Wolverine. And,
Wolverine can fit that mold. Can at least sometimes.
Where's some other characters I like? I like Martian Manhunter, but that probably doesn't fit into that fold.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. But
I do love Martian Manhunter though. I'm a big Martian Manhunter guy.
Martian Manhunter is cool. We'll put him aside.
No, I don't know. We've talked about Rorschach a lot, and that's the thing. I sometimes worry about what me liking him references about me. Because I'm definitely not like I hope I'm not a crazy person like Rorschach is, because Rorschach is nuts for sure. Someone like that is insane.
We're all a little crazy. I don't hold it against you. It's all good.
But it's kind of, I'll admit it's probably a double standard. But it's like, I know Rorschach is a crazy person. I know he's not supposed to be a good person by any means, but we can't help but feel compassion for him.
Yeah, so you feel compassion for the crazy vengeance, like the guy that literally goes out there and beats people. Literally. Yeah. But you have a hard time with Snape.
I know, it's weird. You can make fun of me for it all you want.
I'm not making fun. I want you to sometimes I'm hearing out what someone else will say to you about that kind of stuff. You kind of just see maybe there's something there. But I think so. Here's my theory. I have a theory. I don't know if I'm right, but I have a theory. You want the bad guys to get theirs. What you feel is theirs. What you feel is theirs.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't think you have any compassion when you feel like they deserve to get theirs.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't have it. So, but Rorschach and Batman especially, even Daredevil to a lesser degree, but all three of them, they give it to them. And there is no qualm, there is no mercy, there's no debate. You're the bad guy, and you're going to get your ass beat. And you dig that. Right? You dig that.
Yeah.
You struggle with is you the bad guy. I think your ass should be beat, but he doesn't get his ass beat. And you struggle with this because it goes against your basic, again, some of your basic sense of justice. And use that in quotation marks a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because I think what I think is, so if we're going to talk about compassion for just a second here. Once they get their asses kicked, once they get their asses beat, you're good. It's over. You got it out of your system. right? You're like, yeah, fuck yeah, and it's right. It feels right. But when they don't, it's not that cut and dried. It's not that simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder. Snape, for example. We're gonna go back to Snape for a second.
Okay.
Just for a second. He was on the bad guys team. He did a lot of terrible shit.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't get his ass beat. He didn't get thrown in jail. He didn't get punished as far as you could see clearly. There was no clear. You did bad. I think. Hold on.
Sorry. Continue what you were saying.
You did wrong, and you're getting punished. The thing about Snape that I think you don't realize is there's no other way to punish him than what was there. He was punished. He became a good person, kind of. He became a better person, I'll say, for sure, as a result of what happened. But I don't know if there was any more punishment that could be brought to him than the fact that Lily died. How else can you hurt that man? Really? That ass beating would do nothing to him.
Well, I don't know if I'd want to see, like, I don't know if it's like literal like that. But I see what you're getting at.
I'm keeping it simple. I'm keeping this really simple. Because
I think human beings are complicated at the same. Like,
yes.
It's a lot of, like, I think you're right. I do have a sense of vengeance, I suppose. Now, would I go out and dress up as a bat and beat up people? I hope not. I really don't want to. But that's the thing. That's the thing that bothers me about liking it. It's like, what does that say about me? Am I a monster like that?
No, you're not. It's not that you're a monster. It's you want to see comeuppance. You want to visibly see it. No, you want to visibly see it. That's the thing about you. There's no questions about any of those guys. If Batman beats the shit out of somebody, there is no doubt that guy got his ass beat. Rorschach beats the shit out of somebody. There's no doubt Rorschach is beating someone's ass. Mm-hmm. Heck, the scene where I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about that guy, right? It takes it takes a certain kind of animal to think like that, right? Daredevil has a little bit of that in him too, right? Wolverine has that in him. Although Wolverine's a little bit more nuanced than the other three. He's been around longer. He's been around a little longer. He's done it for a lot longer. It's a little bit more nuanced with him.
Well, that's the thing. I like more nuance with it because I don't really like super 90s. I don't like super 90s like Deadpool or Cable or I know you grew up in the 90s, so I mean, no offense if you like this character.
No. So here's the thing. I'm not talking about Cable. I'm not talking about Deadpool because it's not really about justice there. It's not. That's something else. And we're not talking about that. We're not talking about. We're talking about you and your desire to see comeuppance. I'm keeping it simple. Wolverine's like a little more nuanced. The other three are very simple. Listen, Rorschach is a character from the 80s. I was a kid. I was in kindergarten when he was on the scene. So this is an old character. Mm-hmm. Batman's even older. Daredevil's even older than that. So all of which to say, this is the thing. I think deep down what it is you realize that it's a complicated world, and in a simpler world, you know who the good guys are, you know who the bad guys are, and you want to see those bad guys get shellacked, right? That's what you want. That's what you want. You want to see it, and it's okay that you want to see it because, again, look, professional wrestling, that's their bread and butter, right? I'm serious. They create an asshole. He's the biggest prick in the business. He'll go out of his way. He'll go his way. He'll do everything he can to make you despise him. And you know what? People pay to see? They pay to see him get his ass kicked. That's what that's how it works. That is exactly how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So this feeling you have is not an uncommon one. It's actually, again, but I think, but what I think with you is, for you, you're a journalist. You
Mm-hmm.
see, and you see some shady shit from who are supposed to be the good guys. You probably see sometimes some weird honorable shit from the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
You realize deep down that the world is not that simple. So when you escape into whatever world you go into, you want that simplicity. You want to know who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. You want to see the good guys win. You want to see the bad guys get their asses kicked. That's what you want. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of asterisks there, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
I don't think there's as many asterisks as you think. I bet you I could cut through a few of them. Right? I'm breaking now again. I'm not saying it's quite always that cut and dry with you. You do like more sophisticated stuff, but at your core, when you're looking at things in terms of characters, stories, heroes and villains, I imagine you're a big pulp fan, and the reason why you're a big pulp fan is that pulp still embraces that whole idea.
Yeah, I mean, I like Conan quite a bit. I have it over here.
Yeah. Again, same thing. Conan, although he's not necessarily a good guy or a bad guy for most of it, but he does have a certain sense of justice. You know who he is. You know what he wants, and he knows what the obstacle is to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Sometimes Conan is the asshole. Sometimes, but for the most part, he's just trying to do something to solve a problem. And in his way are some crazy motherfuckers, and he just mows them down. And then usually at the end, what he was going for in terms of treasure, money, and all that shit, he never gets any of that crap until he accidentally becomes king. Right? That's right. So kind of, which might be a punishment actually for him more than anything else. All of which I'm saying to you for a reason. It's the fact that, again, it's understanding what we like and why we like what we like. I like silly shit. Listen, I'm reading Spy X Family. You want to know why? Because it's the ultimate escape. It is completely unrealistic. I have this agent Twilight who's secretly a spy for this good guy country. He's infiltrating this group, and he has to have a wife and kids to fill his cover. His wife happens to be like the greatest assassin ever. His daughter is a telepath, and his dog, of all things, can predict the future. So I haven't. Now again, I enjoy that kind of thing. It's absurd, and I know it's absurd, but I have fun. Because why? Because when I escape, I like things to be less complicated too, but I like them to be silly. I don't necessarily need the good guy, bad guy ass beating stuff. I like it. Don't get me wrong. Not as much as you, but I do like it. Right. But it's knowing who we are as people and what we want. When I escape the world, I don't want a real world, quote unquote, real world. I want something that feels silly, a little engaging, a little fun, because I enjoy that stuff. I also write that stuff. Dude, I wrote about Alice in Wonderland playing croquet against Jason of the Argonauts in the Greek underworld. I am playing a very silly ass story. That's silly, right? That's who I am. For you, you like things cut and dry. You want things to be cut and dry. I think the reason you connect with Rorschach so much, this is my opinion. It's not because of this. I think it's the fact that the one thing of the big difference between Rorschach and any of these other characters is, whatever expectations you have of how the world works, you haven't seen them fulfilled very much.
Mm-hmm.
And that can do one of two things. It can disillusion you, it can disappoint you, or it can make you pliable to what is possible. But you are, I mean, depending on how big those expectations are inside you, those ideas, right? It might be very hard for you to change. I think a lot of the reason why people get disillusioned is they have this idea of what they expect the world to be, for whatever reason. And the world's never quite what you expect it to be. It's something else. And when you get older, wiser, and smarter, you realize, like, what the hell was I thinking about how the world works? I don't know anything. You get to that point. When you get to that point, you actually, it's a lot easier in some ways, because it's just like, I don't have to worry about so much crap. But when you're younger, you definitely have an idea of what the world should be. And sometimes you're right. That's that one thing as older people have to remember too, is sometimes the world should be better than what it is. But sometimes it's also our ideas of what we think make the world better, are what makes us open to being. It's our expectations that make us open to disappointment and disillusionment, not what world is or isn't.
I was about to say I also like Spider Jerusalem as well in terms of comic book characters.
Yeah, Spider what?
Spider Jerusalem, from Transmet.
So again, the ultimate guy has been disillusioned.
I don't know. I just have I like those kind of stories. I like those kind of characters because
there's nothing wrong.
I know how that feels.
But again, your expectations of how the world works. How does the world work? And how does it match your expectations? Right?
Mm-hmm. We live in a very complex place where things are murky. And well, when you put it like that, it makes it sound like I'm just some loser who.
No. It doesn't make you. We all have expectations of how we think the world works. We all do. We have to, because the world is way bigger than any of us can comprehend. So we have this tendency to put things in a box for our own sanity, not just for our own, not just because we're quote unquote losers. The world's bigger than us. Like, dude, I mean, seriously, it's like objectively speaking, if I disappeared tomorrow, the world wouldn't notice. The world would just keep doing its damn thing. I would just be another part of that process. Right? Objectively. So that's how big the world is. So we all need our little boxes, our little spaces to process what we can comprehend. What we just all need to realize on some level is that it is a box. Right? That's it. And if you can realize that it's a box, and that it, much like you, can change. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say you won't be disappointed sometimes. Hell, I still get disappointed sometimes. Even knowing what I know, I still get disappointed sometimes.
It's kind of something I like exploring in my own writing. That sort of like, my view is that I know the world is not perfect. You'd be foolish not to think that, I think. But I keep wanting it to be better. I keep fighting for it to be better. Because, I mean, I sort of fall in that kind of existentialist idea of, well, what other purpose is there if not to make things better?
Sure. But then the question is, what is better? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very murky question too. Because, I mean, to quote a very, very, very popular franchise, the problem's choice. If you make it so that people feel like they have no choice but to make the world a better system, then is it really a good system? It's a box. Mm-hmm. And the natural inclination for anybody that's once we realize we're in a box is to escape from the box.
Mm-hmm.
We want that freedom. Now, it doesn't, again, there are definitely things to criticize about how our system is today. We've talked about some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, right? I mean, how is your better actually better? Do you have an answer to that? Because again, what you see as better, others may not. Right? I mean, like the idea of nobody going hungry is a noble idea. Right? To do that, that would
Yeah.
mean but to do that, to truly do that, we would have to go after the companies and the people in charge that control how food is grown. We have to put less pressure from on the farmers. They're still growing stuff on their own. Right? We'd have to go after the way things are. But what's the clear picture of where we go from there, though? And that's the tricky part.
I suppose it makes it odd that I like Alan Moore so much, because his kind of bread and butter is taking these sort of cut and dry stories and tilting it on its ear. Like, you might think this is better, but then that other person might not. You're just beating up people.
But that's real life.
V for Vendetta and Watchmen both explore that. Even his
to some degree.
Even like Superman and or Batman, even some of his later work as well too.
Yeah, but again, this is the thing. Like we're talking about you specifically,
mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, right? There isn't always a simple cut and dried answer about how the world works,
mm-hmm.
right? And every day I discover new things about how the world is that I didn't know about, right?
It's like, for instance, it's like comedian, evil, sadistic, thug, just a shit stain of a human being, if I could even stoop so low as to call him that. But someone who I would also love to, as you mentioned, very cut and dry. You want to see him get his comeuppance, right? Well, he does, but you don't feel good about it when he does.
No.
And Rorschach, who is the guy whose bread is butter, is dishing out, if you want to call it not justice, vengeance on people who do that. He defends the comedian. So, you're just kind of like, what are you going to do? He's only human, right? I guess that's the point Alan was trying to make with that.
But that's the whole point. We had this conversation 3 days ago, folks. I forced Britton to look at why you were disappointed. All right, why you felt the way you felt at the very end about the comedian.
Mm-hmm.
And what I pointed out to him was he was the victim of his own punchline. And once Britton realized what the punchline was, he understood why you pitied him in spite of everything he did.
Yeah.
Right?
That made me feel bad, because I'm like, man, I feel like a dummy now. Now I feel like the joke was on me the whole time.
But it wasn't. It was just, again, it's about how this is the important thing about this conversation, if anything else. Understand what you value, but also realize that the world is bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's a tricky balance, because sometimes you're going to be right, and you got to stand up for what you believe is right. Right. Mm-hmm. At the same time. Right. And this is, again, I don't have an easy answer here. This is something I still struggle with. My expectations and what the real world is are very different.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I realize that. And that's why I don't go as batshit crazy when things don't go my way. I don't get as disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm open enough to realize that, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with being wrong. It doesn't make me any less of a person to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. But again, it's just like, sometimes you kind of, I know I've talked a lot about my angst with you because I don't know. I like I said, I like picking your brain. 'Cause you're an interesting chap to talk with. You always have interesting things to say. How's that?
That's good. No, I'm listening to you because you got some because you're going somewhere.
But it's like I just like I like a lot of people are just like, well, get over it, or something of that, like, or worry about something else that you can control or whatever like that. But you kind of are like, okay, well, why do you feel this way?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. Some
But that's
certain now you make me. I like people who make me think. How's that? I like that.
yeah.
I don't
Well,
think
that's
that's the
but
thing.
that's the whole goal. I don't need you to agree with me. I just care that I made you think about it.
Yeah. No,
Right.
but yeah, it's just like 'cause the world isn't I mean, you see the prisons out in America. I don't know how it is in Canada, but prisons in America are awful. And I think
They're among
I
the
think
shittiest in the world.
I think that's something I also care about as well. I mean, yeah, they did something wrong, but they don't deserve to be treated like animals.
You have more prisoners in your country than most countries. Some countries have people. And what you have
Well,
to
I know.
understand, and what you have to understand about that is why, right? And it's nothing to do with it's the problem of turning a. I always worry when someone tells me that the prison system is profitable, because right, your prison system's profitable. It does exactly what it's supposed to do, and that's frightening. That's why it's wrong.
Well, yeah,
Because
it's. I mean, I watched Beyond Scared Straight. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I don't know
oh
if they run
yes,
that in Canada,
I've
but
seen them. I've seen them.
but the funny thing is, it didn't convince me like, oh, don't go to prison. Even though I already was like, I don't want to go to prison. I kind of like my freedom. I like to go to the bookstore and hang out and have a good time. But I also was like, damn, this system we're in is really shitty. I think we need to change it. So thanks, Beyond Scared Straight. You radicalized me against the prison system in America, because it's not something I talk about often, but it is something I care about as well. Because yeah, maybe I do have that cut and dry. Maybe I do want to see the bad guys get their comeuppance, but I also think people should be treated with dignity, at least. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lot of I know there's a lot of holes you could poke into that. Like, well, do serial killers need to be treated with dignity? Do rapists, do people who've done, people who've done horrendous? I'm not even going to say to children. I mean, yeah, but they're still human,
Mm-hmm.
and it's wrong to treat them like animals. And what's even worse is that they get out and they keep doing what they do. It's like it's kind of my concern. It's like we are not a system that cares about compassion.
No, we're not. No, you're not. Nor are we, honestly. Um, but you gotta understand. But you gotta
because I
understand.
because I do believe in compassion for other people. I think
Yes,
that's I think that's a beautiful thing about human beings.
I do
So I
too.
think makes Batman a compelling character is that yes, he's angry and yes, he dishes out vengeance on other crazy people, but he has compassion for other people. And he might be fucked up, he might be, as you said, a crazy, obnoxious asshole, rich asshole. He is trying to make things better in his way,
Mm-hmm.
and he does believe in compassion for other people.
Absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
believe that too. Now, I'm not going to be Batman, but
If I see a bat dressed guy in your neck of the woods, I'm just gonna look at you and go, "Okay, dude, listen, just
just stop.
don't get killed. Yeah, just don't get killed."
I'm not planning on it. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I know, but understand yourself. Understand why you feel the way you feel. Like that was my opinion, just based on just our conversations about why you like these particular characters. And I'm like, you like those particular characters because, again, it simplifies a process that's very complex. What is a better world? That's it. Simplifies the process. It's very complex. And hey, you're not the only one. Like, don't feel bad about that. People do it all the time. Again, that's why professional wrestling exists.
That's funny. I never really got into professional wrestling.
It's a lot like it's a lot like superheroes.
I mean, I like. It's a weird thing. Just never got into it. I thought it like. I mean, I like my fair share of goofy stuff, but I mean, I have my limits, I guess. But not that. But I just never got into it for whatever reason.
That's fair. I am a professional wrestling fan. I enjoy it. But again, I'm just keeping it really simple. Like, it's really simple. You build a bad guy. Like, it's like old Clint Eastwood. You build a bad guy. You make him the biggest prick possible. You keep building him. Then you introduce the good guy. Good guy goes to the bad guy. Well, let's fight. That's pro wrestling storytelling in a nutshell.
I mean, it is fun to. I mean, I've seen some highlights of. I mean, you're talking about professional wrestling. You're talking about WWE and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I've seen some of the clips, and I can see how people are entertained by it. Like, there's a lot of just crazy, over the top action. I'm like, all right, this is entertaining. I enjoy this.
Yeah, well, no, but again, I'm keeping this really simple, right? I'm simplifying it. But that's it, right? Like, understand yourself, and if you understand yourself, you can figure out your own way to make the world a better place.
Yeah. No. I remember. Yeah, it's like those two things, compassion and because I do believe in compassion. I do think we need more compassion in our society today. But at the same time, you want to see bad people get comeuppance. It's kind of like that.
It's okay.
Same thing. It's same thing with the prison system. It's like, yeah, I know these guys are bad, but at what point should we treat them with decency and not like dogs? Wild dogs.
If you really want a dark exhibition, you should look at your current president's history as a senator in the 80s when he helped approve the current prison system as you know it today.
Ugh.
Yeah, like a lot of the stuff. I mean, he's not the only one to blame, but he's one of them. And so all of which to say, my friend, is, like I said, understand the world you have in front of you. Understand what you want from the world in front of you. And figure out, and if the goal is truly to make it better, figure out the best way you can do it.
Well, yeah. It's what I'm trying. We're all just trying, man.
That's right. And as long as you understand that, we all will have compassion. I think, Mr. Britton, we have had a good conversation today. What do you think? Always,
sir. I love our chats, even if they go for a long time. I always fear that I'm bugging people, with like my angst about the world.
Like I said, this particular one, like, this. When I tell you I'm done for the day, you go, right? And that's as long as that's the case, we'll be good, my friend. So you got a show you got to promote, right?
Yes. I run a couple podcasts. I run Britton Jake Go to Movies. I run Days of Our Sooners, which is about college football. And I run Britton's Hangout Hour, which I need to find new guests for because I've been busy with college. And also I've just been, sadly, I'm not like you, Josh. I can't find, or not can't, but I have been struggling to find a bunch of guests for my show. So.
Well, we can talk about that off the air, I guess. So,
All
is
right.
there a link? Is there a link to any of those shows?
Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel. Some Okie Dude. I'll send you the link. You can also find me on Twitter. There's also Some Okie Dude, where you can just find me going off on random tidbits and you can just hear all my random tidbits about it. I'm on Goodreads, where I do book reviews and comics. I also do Letterboxd, also Some Okie Dude, where I talk about movies that I enjoy.
Go check him out, ladies and gentlemen. And that will do it. Tomorrow morning, Marissa Mayer and me are going to try one more time. It's me, Marissa, and my Doppelganger Part 2. That'll be tomorrow. Tonight, however, I'm going to be advertising my advertising services, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a project that requires... I misspelled that. I am awesome.
I need to check out some of your... I need to check out some of your books, but I don't know how I'd find them. Amazon.
Yeah, they're all on Amazon.
Like I got some. I mean, I already have stuff. I'm about to read this book here, so
there you go.
Yeah,
folks. Yeah. For my advertising services, you can go on my website and the WordPress.com by itself and get access to them. But yeah, go on the Amazon. Look my name up. You'll find me. I promise.
Yeah, Pantaloresco. I'm sure that's not a name to get mixed up with other people.
No, It doesn't. It really doesn't. All right, folks. You have yourselves a wonderful night. Tomorrow, Marissa Mayer, noon Mountain Time, 11 a.m. PST. Check it out. All right, guys. Have yourself a good one.